Welcome to my channel. I really appreciate everyone that comes to watch my videos. I'm very thankful for those of you who have subscribed and for each of you that has liked or commented or shared my videos. I really do appreciate it, and I want you to understand that. The growth of my channel is entirely because you are coming to watch my videos, and I appreciate that greatly. Tonight I want to talk about communism. We're going to watch a video by a gentleman who lived in Czechoslovakia when it was communist and then escaped and came to America. And he talks about what he learned when he was living under communism. The thing you have to understand is that under a communist system, the claim is, and this is true of socialism or all the other isms you want to call it, you can name it anything you want, but it's Marxism at its base. The thing about it is that the claim is that the poor man will have power. But if you look at communism in the entire world, every place that has existed, that is not true. The poor man never has any more power than he had before. In fact, he has less. They make it sound so attractive. Oh, we're all going to be equal. Everyone's going to have the same. The rich will no longer be rich, and the poor will no longer be poor. We'll all share equally. It never works that way. It can't work that way because of human nature and human greed. So I want you to watch this guy. It's a 10-minute video, and I want you to watch it and listen to what he has to say, and I'm going to comment on some of it.
I think that one of the big mistakes we did after the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the end of communism is to stop teaching young people about the dangers of socialism. My name is Marian Tupi, and this is my story. I'm a senior fellow at the Cato Institute, and I'm the founder and editor of humanprogress.org. I was born in communist Czechoslovakia, back then called the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. Czechoslovakia was a socialist dictatorship. We didn't have economic freedom or capitalism, and we didn't have political freedom or democracy. After the Second World War, when the Nazis were kicked out of Czechoslovakia, they were replaced by the Red Army of the Soviet Union. Czechoslovakia between the wars was a democratic and rather well-developed country. So my grandparents always remembered the 1930s before the war as a time when Czechoslovakia was rather prosperous and a nice place to live. I think the biggest aspiration of somebody who is growing up behind the Iron Curtain was to get out. The reason why we had the Iron Curtain, the reason why we had border posts and border guards with machine guns and barbed wire was to keep us in from leaving.
Think about that for just a minute. The biggest aspiration that you had as a kid was to get out, to go somewhere else. That's what communism is.
Even though there was tremendous amount of information control by the communists, some information about life in the West still got to us. And so we understood that life in the West was much better. I remember from the days of communism how difficult it was to obtain a car or a washing machine or anything. And of course the shortages of food and clothing. When I was about 10 years old, I was walking down this market street from my grandmother's place, listening to the loudspeakers read out the latest statistics, how we have produced this much food and this much clothing, and how productivity in the country was huge, and how we are beating the West, and how we were living in the luckiest country in the world. And I noticed that all the shops on this market street were empty. I was living in this Orwellian nightmare whereby the reality of what I was seeing with my eyes and the propaganda that I was hearing from the regime were completely different. The government wanted to have a total control over your person, but also your thoughts. So if you wanted to be a rebel, you went to church, because the church was the focal point of anti-communist agitation behind the Iron Curtain. Greed is a part of human nature. It is part of who we are. Communist apparatchiks were certainly very greedy. They had better houses. They had better hospitals. Their children were sent to better school. They accumulated more wealth than the rest of the population. In some ways, you can think about communist society as a feudal society.
Now, if you know anything about history and you know about the period of feudalism in the world, what he's telling you is that you had basically lords and barons and earls who lived in castles and ate and got fat and drank and enjoyed life and had a good time, and then everybody else was a serf and worked in the fields and paid taxes to the lord or master. That's what a feudal system is, and that's what socialism is. You're not going to escape poverty by going into socialism. You're just not. As a matter of fact, it's much harder to escape from poverty in a socialist system than it is in a capitalist system. So all this baloney they're teaching you in school and college and high schools and junior highs and now elementary schools about how wonderful socialism is, it's all a lie. It's an absolute lie.
There is a small percentage of people at the top, the Politburo, the top echelons of the Communist Party, who have all the rights, who have a lot of freedoms. But those rights and freedoms are denied to people at the bottom.
Sound familiar? That's what's going on in our country now. In the United States of America, that's what it's like for a great deal of people. Do you understand why? Because we have been creeping and creeping and creeping and creeping more and more towards socialism. The answer to our problems is not more socialism. It's more freedom. It's returning to a constitutional republic. It's returning to what we were given when the forefathers created a country that is so far superior to every other country on earth that the entire world is scrambling to get here, even now. Even in the bad shape that we're in now, they're still trying to get here because it's better than what they have. Think about that for a minute. It's just hard for me to understand how people can buy the lies about socialism. All you got to do is do a little research. Just do a little bit of research. Find out how many people were killed in the Soviet Union. How many people were killed in China? How many people were killed in Cambodia? How many people were killed in Cuba? That's what socialism does. That's what communism does. That's what Marxism does. It leads to death and misery.
Socialist healthcare system was run on greed and corruption. Doctors wouldn't even look at you unless they were bribed. The first question isn't what's wrong with this person, but who this person is. Who is he or she connected to? So this is how the system ran. It ran on greed, it ran on corruption. Communism was based on lying, stealing, cheating, backstabbing. In order to survive in a communist regime, you had to become a moral monster. Communism really started falling apart in the late 1980s. Gorbachev introduces perestroika and glasnost in the Soviet Union, but things begin to change in Eastern Europe as well. In mid-November 1989, people take to the streets of Czechoslovakia. Some are beaten by government goons, but the protests don't stop. They accelerate, and suddenly the whole country is in town squares demanding a change in government. I came from a very political family, and so I went to join those protests, even though I was only 13 years old. far too many people took to the streets. There was a danger of a general strike, whereby the country would simply stop working and thereby crash the economy. And so the communists very quickly acceded to giving up their monopoly on political power. The whole country was in turmoil, but there was a lot of feeling of optimism about the future. Everybody knew by that point that what we wanted was liberal democracy and free market capitalism. So we knew that we were embarking on a brand new chapter in the history of the country.
And now, in America, you have a lot of people who want socialism and want to get rid of capitalism. It's astounding. It is absolutely astounding. I could keep pounding on this. I mean, I could pound on this for hours. But what good does it do? Nobody seems to listen. Nobody seems to care. We just keep creeping and creeping and creeping and creeping and creeping more and more toward the very thing that will destroy us. I don't understand Americans now. I really don't. They've lost their sense of freedom. They've lost their understanding of what a constitutional republic is. They've lost an understanding of what the Constitution means and what the Declaration of Independence means. And we have to get it back. If we don't get it back, the last beacon of hope in the world will be gone. And then where do you go? When you get fed up like he did, where do you go? You're going to escape to Cuba? You're going to go to Vietnam? You're going to go to France? You're going to go to Britain? Seriously? Americans are spoiled rotten. They don't understand the blessings that they have been given. They really don't. Somehow, some way, we got to find a way for them to get that back, to understand what it is that they've been given, the treasure that they have, and to understand that the only way they can keep it is to fight for it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll put a link to the video so you can watch the rest of it. And I pray to God that people will wake up in America. Because if they don't, the future is bleak. As always, I pray that you will be prosperous, that you'll be healthy, that you'll live a long life, and that God will keep you safe. I pray that He'll do the same for every person that you love. And I pray that you will be anxious for nothing, but in all things, through prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, you will make your requests known to God. And the peace that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. This is the Vietnam Era Vet, out.